So cytoplasm, found inside the cell, and it contains dissolved materials including nutrients, ions, proteins, and waste products. It is high in potassium and low in sodium. It is high in protein and it is also high in carbohydrate, but it's low in amino acids and fats. It also contains the organelles, which have specific structures and functions. So there are two types of organelles. There are non-membranous organelles, so no membrane, and they have direct contact with the cytosol. So they include, as you can see there, the microvilli, the cilia, the ribosomes, the cytoskeleton, and the centrioles. Then you have the membranous organelles, and just as they're labelled, they've got a membrane, so they're isolated from the cytosols. So they include the endoplasmic reticulum, the Golgi apparatus, the lysosomes, the perioxomes, and the mitochondria. So looking a little more closely at the non-membranous organelles, remember these have direct contact with the cytosols. So there are 6 that we're going to be covering. So the cytoskeleton, it provides structural proteins, made of structural proteins, and provides shape and strength to the cell. These are made of protein called actin, and they provide strength, and they provide consistency, and they work in pairs, the thick filaments of myosin, if we're looking at muscle movement. So when we look at the muscular system, down at the microscopic layer, the words actin and myosin will come up again. The microtubules are large hollow tubes, and they attract the centrosomes, and they provide, again, some strength and help in anchoring organelles. And also they can move vesicles within the cells. You've got the microvilli, the centrosomes, and the cilia. So the microvilli increase the surface area because there are lots and lots of folds, and they're attached to the cytoskeleton. The cilia are small hair-like extensions, and the cilia help move fluids across the cell surface. So here's another diagrammatic representation of what we've just spoken about. You can see the projections on top of the cell. So they are the microvilli, and inside it you've got the microfilaments, and the whole thing is that orange colour, which is the plasma membrane. You can see how the cytoskeleton provides strength and is sort of like a mesh network holding the cell out to shape. There are also some other parts of the cell that we're going to talk about next. So ribosomes, there are 2 types of ribosomes, and these are polypeptides and are involved in protein synthesis. You've got free ribosomes, which float around inside the cytoplasm, and you've got fixed ribosomes, and they're attached to ER, which is called endoplasmic reticulum, which we're going to talk about in the next slide, and they manufacture proteins that are secreted outside of the cell. The proteasomes carry enzymes, and they're involved in disassembling damaged proteins for recycling. So it's a continual process of new cells and old cell components being removed. If we look now at the membranous organelles, there are 5 that we're going to be covering. As I mentioned in the previous slide, we've got the endoplasmic reticulum, the Golgi apparatus, lysosomes, perioxomes, and mitochondria. So ER, or endoplasmic reticulum, endo, if we break down the word endo, within, plasm, cytoplasm, and reticulum, a network. Within that, the endoplasmic reticulum is attached to the cisternae, which is strong chambers within the membrane. And the function of the endoplasmic reticulum is the synthesis or the making of proteins, carbohydrates, and lipids. So they're very important within the cell. And they also store these synthesized molecules and materials. And they transport the material within the endoplasmic reticulum. And here it's really important that you understand that they're involved in the detoxification of drugs or toxins. So every medication that you give a patient, it depends upon how well the cells are all functioning around the body as to how quickly that particular dose of the medication will be removed from the body so that the person does not become toxic. So here's another diagram showing you the endoplasmic reticulum and the cisternae. So you can see that it's a network, and the endoplasmic reticulum are the little blue baubles that seem to be attached to the cisterna. And they're involved, as we said, in the synthesis of carbohydrates, proteins. The Golgi apparatus is an apparatus that's involved in modifying secretions, hormones or enzymes, and it releases it out of the cell by a process known as exocytosis. Exo meaning outside of the cell. And it also is involved in renewing and modifying the plasma membrane. It packages up special enzymes within vesicles for use within the cytoplasm. So here we've got a diagram of the Golgi apparatus. So again, folds, and you can see that the folds are always continually moving, even though this is a static diagram, but it's forming vesicles or little containers of hormones that are transported around the cell. Lysosomes, so they're powerful enzyme-containing vesicles. So lyso, dissolve, and soma, body. So these are involved in cleaning up the cell. So the primary lysosome are formed by the Golgi apparatus, and they have inactive enzymes. The secondary lysosomes are fused, and they're filled. They fuse with the damaged parts of the cells, and they actually digest these parts of the organelles and allow that to be removed from the body. It also is involved in isolating toxic chemicals by forming a wall around it. So lysosomes clean up the inside of the cells by a process known as autolysis. Auto meaning self, so lysis meaning eating, so self-eating. It cleans up inside the cells, it breaks down large molecules, it attacks bacteria, it recycles damaged organelles, and it ejects waste products by the process of exocytosis, exo exiting, cyto outside of the cell. So pushes things outside of the cell. So here's that autolysis, self-destruction of damaged cells. So it's the way that the cell is involved in cleaning itself. The next organelle we're going to look at is the mitochondria. They have a smooth outer membrane and an inner membrane with numerous folds known as cristae. And there's matrix, so there's fluid within the cristae, that's called a matrix. And the mitochondria is known as the powerhouse of the cell, and it takes chemical energy from food in the form of glucose, so the simplest form of energy, and produces adenosine triphosphate, which is a chemical which is a form of energy that the cell is able to use. So mitochondria is involved in energy production. It's called aerobic metabolism or cellular respiration. Aerobic because it must do it in the presence of oxygen. So the mitochondria uses oxygen to break down food and to produce ATP, energy. So if we look at the formula below, we've got glucose plus oxygen, and adenosine diphosphate produces carbon dioxide, water, and energy in the form of adenosine triphosphate.